Okay. Last week we looked at ICT strategy. Today we want to look at ICT policy and also change management. So let's start with ICT policy planning. So the ICT policy planning is the step that follows ICT strategy formulation. So we start with the strategy formulation, then we move on to policy planning. So like as we go along the way, and as I've said earlier, the policy operationalizes the strategy we are putting into practice. We are ensuring that it is part and parcel of all procedures. The strategy itself, what we have agreed to do, the steps we have agreed to be able to move from point A to point B, we are actually doing it. So what is a policy? Okay. There are different definitions for this term, depending on what point, depending on who wants to use the policy or who is defining a policy. With government itself, it's quite similar with an organization or management policy. It is those principles that guide government on what to do. For example, government say has a policy on ICT, government say has a policy on healthcare, and so on and so forth. So this is quite similar. What we find in government is quite similar with what we find in management. Yeah, the sets of basic principles and associated guidelines. Then they are enforced by a governing body. Yeah, it gives direction, and it also limits your actions. It says, the policy says this is what you can do and this is what you cannot do. This is quite different from insurance. The policy simply contains the terms and conditions which the insurer says this is what they will cover for you, and this and in case of anything, this is what the policy covers, this and this. Basically, it's also almost the same thing. It still governs a relationship between you and the insurance company. So now, in a little bit more detail, what is a policy? Yeah. So we have already said it is a certain sets of actions that guide an organization on the direction to take on things that they can or they cannot do. Yeah. There are other actions that the organization could have taken, but they've chosen to take these specific actions. Okay. So policies are made and they are implemented in the same way that decisions are made and implemented. So you can see a policy is a decision. We've decided this is the direction we are going to take. There are other decisions you could have made, but this is what you have chosen. So policies are usually national or organizational, and they are not limited in time. One will not usually speak in terms of two-year policies or something like that, but it is, however, a living document as we go further. We know that it's a living document. We'll say we have a policy which is valid for 5 years. And in these 5 years, this is the policy that will guide us. So why do we have ICT, specifically ICT policies? One is to prevent abuse of IT resources. I'm sure most of you have had an experience of policies. You have used them and you've seen them. Probably some of you have formulated them, but they give guidance on how the IT resources should be used by the entire organization. Again, why would we do that? Well, one, we had already said, it is now generally agreed IT resources or ICT is an enabler. Yeah. The primary purpose of ICT is to enable the organization achieve its strategic goals. So what happens when the resources are misused? Yeah. It then prevents us from achieving the organizational goals that we have set out to be used. And also it's there for ethical purposes. Okay, the policy is also there for ethical purposes. Yeah, it's again misuse, but also there for ethical purposes. Why are we using these resources? When I'm sure I'll be taking you through the course of science, technology, and ethics. This is something that will come out greatly. The use or misuse of IT resources for unethical purposes. So, one, why do we prevent? To stick to the goal. We want to stick to the goal of achieving organizational resources and then for ethical purposes. The second is to protect ownership of information resources. So this ties back to the first one, but it's also important that it stands on its own. So the policy is also there because you have a very important resource, information. Once you bring in ICT, information becomes key. We acknowledge that there is something of value here, and it needs to be used one appropriately, ethically, and in a righteous manner. So the policy is there for that too. It's also there to be used for its rightful resources. And that's why, primarily because ICT handles the information resources. To protect employees so that an employee knows this is what I can do, this is what I cannot do. It is a guide. And to ensure that they actually carry out the work they are supposed to carry out to help the organization achieve its overall organizational goal. Providing guidelines for decision making. Yeah. So remember, as we defined policy just a few slides away, the policy is a set of decisions that must be made at management level, at operational level, and even at governance level. Yeah. At all levels, you're making a decision. So, and this decision is not just for the IT management, but for every single person who is using ICT, every single individual within the organization that is using ICT. The ICT policy is not for the IT department, it's for the entire organization. For as long as you're going to touch that piece of equipment, you're going to use that network that belongs to the organization, you're going to use that printer, whatever it is, the policy is a guideline for every single individual. It integrates corporate governance. Yeah. Policies, any policy in any organization, the purpose of any policy is to help governance. Yeah. If, for example, if you have an HR policy, for instance, it's used by the board of directors to know who should be hired for a certain position, who should not be hired, how a salary is going to be paid, what is the salary scale, what is the appropriate thing, and so on and so forth. When we're carrying out things like audits, yeah, the policy becomes extremely important. So that's where the ICT policy also comes in to support corporate governance. Then finally and lastly, to meet regulatory, legal, and ethical requirements. Some of these things have been integrating them, especially looking at prevention of IT abuse of the resources, protection of data and information. These come into the regulatory and legal and ethical requirements. So where do ICT and IT policies fit? Somehow I've been mentioning it, dropping in the hints here and there. The first is governance. So this is where you find the board of directors use this policy to evaluate how the organization is actually using the resources that have been given them, that they're actually being used to help the organization achieve their strategic goals. Yeah. ICT policy and procedure description. So this is where all users, both those who manage and those who use, are guided by the policy on how to conduct themselves as they use these resources, how they should use them, how they should be appropriately used. Then lastly, for ICT management description. So this one is used specifically by those who are in management of ICT. They are guided on how to implement these procedures so that you can achieve the overall business objectives of the organization. So here we have a diagram which gives the pictorial view of how the policy fits in. You have three major domains here in the center. The first is IT governance, the second is IT policies and procedures, then IT management. So here in this section, IT governance, this is where you find your board of directors being guided on how to, on evaluating or monitoring the way this policy is being used by by management to support organizational goals. Then the procedures here, this is where you find at the operational level, where the everyday worker is guided on how they're going to use this policy. The IT personnel knowing what they need to keep up and running and why for which particular process and procedure. Then IT management is the last one that looks at achieving the organizational goals, the business or the overall business goals. So what exactly do we find in an ICT policy? Okay, what do we find in an ICT policy? Like I said, most of you already know these policies. You've seen them. You've probably you have formulated them and implemented. So when we see here that ICT policies cover training, security, and procurement, we'll be saying, is this true? Yes, it is. Normally, those who may not have seen an ICT policy, let me just first stop here and ask, how many of you have seen an ICT policy or know what an ICT policy is? Sarah raises hand. Anyone others, have you seen an ICT policy? Have others seen? If no, just briefly, let me see if I can find, give me a minute. I want to see if I can find a draft policy and just share and maybe just give you an overview, just an overview, nothing detailed. Give me a minute, please. Okay, let me just share screen. Okay, so this, I don't know what is being used now, but this was some time back, 2020. Just to show you this policy and the different elements that are there. You have the ICT acceptable use policy, ICT standards, user account management, telephone usage, eligibility of ICT resources and services, demilitarization, ICT project management, incident management, so on and so forth. These are all sub-policies of the overall policy, yeah? So if you see, let me just take you to the so here you have the ICT acceptable use policy. So it simply outlines the purpose of the objective of the policy statements. It says users must use only those ICT resources that are authorized users, so on and so forth. So these are all different sub-policies, yeah? Now, let me just stop and go back to the slide. So now when you come to a statement, when you come to a statement here saying that the ICT policy has these three, only these three, you might say, is this true? In reality, when you look at all those sub-policies, all of them fall under this. So take an example. When you talk about acceptable use, that falls under security. When you talk about training, you have to train the user on what is acceptable or not. That has to be part of their training. Every employee must be trained on how to use ICT, what is appropriate use, and so on and so forth. So all those sub-policies in actual sense fall under these three generic concepts in policy, in ICT policy. Okay? It is important that policies are reviewed regularly to ensure that you are meeting the objectives of the policy. Remember again, of the organization. Remember again, the policy is operationalizing the ICT strategy, which ICT strategy's objective is to achieve the overall organizational goals. The ICT policy is a living document, so it has a begin time and an end time. It has a time when it is born, it has a time when it is put to bed and a new policy comes into play. Now, normally, every new employee of an organization receives a copy of the policy or sections of the policy that are important for them. Not all, they may not receive everything, because you might find some sections are addressed to the IT department, and that policy part is for them. Then another is for is maybe for audit. Another one is for users, depending on who you are in that section. So, for example, even the UMU's policy includes an e-learning policy. So the e-learning policy is, of course, extremely important for lecturers, the teaching staff, and students. It's also important for also for the IT department, okay, even for audit, just to see how that the statements in there are actually being adhered to in case of any action, in case there needs to be any discipline when somebody misuses the resources that have been given. Yeah. So these particular policies must be shared with the stakeholders, the interested parties, once they come on board within your organization. So if it's a part of an employee contract, it must be part and parcel. Whereas an employee says, I understand this is how resources must be used, and I pledge to do so as the organization asks me to. So let's look at the different overarching policies that we're looking at. We start with the training policy. What does the training policy or policies, sub-policies that are focused on training, what would they be talking about? They'll talk about who is eligible for training. So for example, if it's talking about the users, of overall users on, let's say, how to use email, how to use the organizational email, how do you access it, on what devices, and so on and so forth. If it is a particular system, maybe for accounts, that one must be clearly stated that this is the training policy for a particular system, who has access to what information, and who should access this information, who should not access it, what are the user rights, and so on and so forth. So this must be stated for the training. So you may have a training policy for different policies for the different systems, and address them accordingly. When are trainings conducted? Yeah. So there may be trainings when an employee is just coming in. There may be periodic trainings for elaborate systems that need constant renewal. So maybe periodic, that one is periodic. Take an example for us who are in teaching and learning. We usually have at semester level trainings on e-learning resources that are available to us. How can we teach on an online platform? What resources are available? What can we use? How can we use them? And so on and so forth. So this one is normally done maybe once a year. Training needs for specific jobs. Yeah. As we more and more embrace ICT in our different departments, it's also important that training policy indicates, let us say, the minimum level of digital literacy employees should have as they come on board. Take an example, an organization that is using accounting systems really requires that there is some knowledge of accounting systems from their professional accountants, those who are in the accounts department. They should have some, first of all, maybe ICT literacy levels. They should have some knowledge of accounting systems that are available, so that they can easily adapt to systems that are in use or any new systems that may come in. What type of trainings are to be used? Are you going to have face-to-face trainings? Are you going to have e-learning? Will you have guest speaker, and so on and so forth? Who is responsible for monitoring the trainings, the funding? Where will the funding come from for this training? So normally, these are just some of the things you may or may not outline. Some things may not be applicable to your organization. Others may be applicable. What are the things you must do before writing a training policy? Find out the staff abilities and capabilities. Weigh in on in-house training, or should we have external training? So take an example. If you're using, for example, like an open source system. So an open source system, you may find the ICT department can train on it, and they can train others. But if you're purchasing a new system from a vendor, then you probably have to look at your service level agreement. What is the contract between the two of you? Who is to do the training for how long? And so on and so forth. Now, can we just have a small exercise in your groups? Okay, a small exercise. You've already looked at the Clarion School for Boys. Can you brainstorm in your groups what could be included in a policy? Yeah. So here is just something you can have. I want us to have about 10 minutes of discussion and use this as guidance. Is that okay? If, let's say, I divided you into two groups, would that be
Pardon,
okay?
doctor.
Pardon,
doctor.
Sorry, I'm going to share the screen again. I was thinking if I can divide you, let's say, into two groups, breakout rooms, and you discuss, let me just share the screen again, about the Clarion School for Boys case study. You just had just a brainstorming process, simply a brainstorming process. You review the ICT skills gap for the organization, review individual training needs, review ongoing ICT learning, how are the ICT staff acquiring skills, and so on and so forth. We want to see what would you include in their policy of training, their training policy for Clarion School for Boys, the case that you have. Is that okay?
So that's okay. So we imagine would have to read the case, to go through the case as a group in our
Yes,
small groups and then present.
Yes, please. So let me just put up two breakout rooms.
Why not about 5?
You'd like 5?
5 minutes, sure.
Sorry, 5?
No,
Please,
sorry, doctor, I was talking to someone. Sorry, let me mute my
Okay.
microphone.
So
Doctor, good morning.
Good morning.
And unfortunately, I can't know why we had stopped. My network is bad. I was traveling. I'm almost, in fact, I'm nearby your area code.
Hey,
I'm in Rwamanja.
hey, okay.
Yeah.
No, don't worry. The session is almost done. The rest are about to join us.
Eh.
Mm.
So some of the things, in fact, I've just reached Rwamanja. I was from Mumbarara.
Oh, okay.
I was on the road.
Hey, Bambi.
So today I've missed. If you see me on and off,
Hey, I
don't
understand.
get worried. Those are my challenges so far.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, Bambi.
Okay. Let's wait for them, maybe we can
Okay.
proceed from there.
We are here.
Okay, welcome back, everyone.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, so if you could just give me feedback on your brainstorm session.
Yeah, we had a couple of observations and short recommendations that we came with for like 5 of the steps that you gave in the slides.
Okay.
So the first where they say review the ICT skills gap for the organization. According to the case study, we observed that there are limited ICT capabilities due to insufficient training for the staff. So there is need for a structured training to close these gaps. And the recommendation that we gave in here, the fact that the capabilities are differing, the recommendation that we gave here is we conduct a skills gap analysis to evaluate current staff capabilities against the required competencies.
Okay.
Then when we go to individual training needs, like I earlier mentioned that the staff ICT proficiency levels are varying. Some require foundational training, others need advanced knowledge. So here we recommended that what's Clarion Boys School implements tailored training programs based on the employee roles and current proficiencies. Like for the ones that have no idea at all, those ones will go for the foundational training. Then the ones that have an idea, we can build on on what they have and tailor for them an advanced training program. Then when we go to review ongoing ICT learning, ICT staff are currently acquiring new skills through informal learning, such as on-job experience, but lack formal training opportunities. So it's after they open and close a certain software that they get to know this is how the software opens, but they haven't had the opportunity to know the way how to have access to the software manual, to know how it starts, how it operates, and how it closes down. So in this case, we recommend for introducing a structured learning path such as workshops, certifications, online courses, and maybe even partner with external training providers to ensure access to updated knowledge and industrial standards. Then on number 4, review the time an employee takes to consolidate skills before being transferred to a new role. Employees may not have sufficient time to fully develop and apply their skills before being assigned a new role. So in this case, we recommended to set a consolidated period, say a 6 months probational period, to see if the skills that the employee attained, if they're able to deploy them in their new role, or they need more training time. So in this case, we recommended for a probation period once one is placed into a new role. Then number 5, which is our last one, is staff benefits are unclear, potentially leading to low motivation for engaging in training programs. In here, we gave an example where, for example, ICT staff need to attain an ITL certificate, which might cost like $320. What if their salary is not even able to finance that? That means that they will not be able to 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 pay for the certification individually, since they cannot afford. So demotivates them into getting new skills, into trying to update their skills. So in this case, we recommended that they provide incentives such as salary increment, promotion, certification, recognition for completing training, highlight career growth opportunities tied to skills acquisition. So if the salary is increased, maybe they can be able to afford some certifications that are affordable to them. Or if there are promotions also motivate people to attain the skills needed, particularly for that new role that they're eyeing. Then also they can offer certifications like best employee certifications, and they say that aside of this certification or recognition that we are giving you, we are going to finance this particular certificate or this particular course for you. These things bring out the spirit of competition, which motivates employees to work harder to attain the incentives that are being offered. Thank you, Doctor. That was it from us.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you for that. That
Thank
was really thoroughly done.
Mm.
The other group?
The other group is us, or three of us. However, we had not yet read through the Clarion School case, so we used the time to go through it, and maybe we shall submit next time.
Okay. But thank you so much to the Sarah's group. That was thoroughly done. And I think that gives us at least an idea of how we start by looking at our current situation and formulating a policy from there. Thank you for that. So let's just move on with our lecture. So let's look at the security policy, because this is also another very, very important section of the policy handling anything to do with security. Remember, we said we are looking at prevention of abuse of resources. 2, we also want to protect information resources that the organization has. And then also 3, to protect the employees, and then also to adhere to regulatory, legal, and ethical matters. So the security policy ensures those 4 areas. Yeah. So it covers what the organization intends to protect. So those 4 areas we've been talking about. And then it lays down the procedures employees must follow in order to protect data. So this one, you have sections that may handle issues like firewalls and so on and so forth that are addressed to the IT department. Then you have issues that are addressed to the users, okay? And even basically management to protect the legal side of things. Now, just a quick question. What is the difference between security of data and privacy of data? Can we differentiate these two? What is the difference between security of data and privacy of? Yes, Sarah.
With the security of data, we ensure that it is safe. It cannot be tampered with by persons that shouldn't be tampering with. Then with the privacy of data, we ensure that information that is say confidential is not accepted to the legal persons. For example, if you look at, say, a policy in most cases is a public document. So we ensure that this policy is safe and cannot be altered. But if we look at, say, the national ID, say we look at a national ID database, the national IDs, to start with, this is private information and is recorded as personal data. So we cannot put out all national ID data for public viewing. That is my understanding, Doctor.
Oh, thank you so much. I think, Sarah, you've really clarified what the difference between those two are. Thank you so much. So what are the things that must be that the security policy must handle? It should identify potential threats to data and manage these threats. Then it should allocate responsibilities for data security. Who is responsible for the data security? Okay, very, very, very important. Let me just give you a simple example. If for example, your organization decides to introduce a third party, outsource some of its services, to another organization, and this organization is another company which is going to maybe handle the data of that organization. Take a simple case. Do you remember the case? It happened during lockdown, I think, or the case of Chambogo, where a certain number of students, their marks disappeared, and there was a third party. There is a third party there was a third party, and that there still is a third party that is handling the results of Chambogo University. So in such a situation, who is responsible for the loss of those results? Who is the person responsible? Is it Chambogo University? Is it the third party? Who is responsible? So the policy clearly states that in case you have a third party, say you've outsourced certain services where the certain sensitive information is handled, who is responsible for that breach? So that is what part of the policy, this is what the policy states. The policy will also state what resources are needed to maintain the security. It lays down the staff responsible. It also specifies the procedures and processes for protection of viruses and so on and so forth. And also states the disciplinary procedures in case of a breach. Yeah. So this is what it should contain. A definition of information security, overall objectives, scope, and importance. A statement of management intent supporting the goals and principles. A framework for setting controls, objectives, and controls, including structures and so on and so forth. So the information security policy is a brief explanation of security policies principles and should include compliance with legislation. So you'll find in policies, they'll say in compliance with maybe this particular act, this policy will ensure blah, blah, blah. It's referring to a particular regulatory and legislative requirement. Yeah. Business continuity management in case of any breach. What do we have as a security measure that in case there's a breach here, can we fall back on this and so on and so on? Consequences for information violation, network security issues like passwords, what should be the minimum, maximum length, data transfer, change control, so on and so forth. So that this information security would include, it's a definition of general and specific responsibilities, references to documentation that may support security rules, the security rules users should comply with, the detailed security policies and procedures. Now, for the information security policy, this one must be communicated to all staff, yeah, all staff members, and they should be aware of this policy and the consequences and who is responsible and so on and so forth. Procurement policy. So this is also another key area in the policy part. Why? Because ICT essentially involves purchase of equipment. So you need to know you need to have a clear guidance on what can you purchase, how can you purchase it, from where, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So as much as ICT is not the one that does procurement, but there should be guidelines for the procurement department on what can be purchased. But like we stated earlier, in one of the lectures we had, as much as we want to have perfect policies, we are not living in a perfect world. So you have sometimes in an organization where funds may not be as we would like them to be. So we may not be able to do things within our means, but still within the policy, we should have a policy guideline that ensures us that we are protected from any future mishaps. So the policy may also cover disposal of unwanted or obsolete equipment. What do we do with them? And this also covers the ethical elements of it, because actually, in terms of because ICT is one of the big contributors to greenhouse house emissions. So it is also important that your policy also provides for the disposal. How do we ethically dispose of equipment? Do we have any question on this area?
No, doctor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now should we move on to change management?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
Yes, please, Doctor.
Okay. Now, when we think about all the things that we have put forward, ICT strategy, ICT policy, all of these are bringing about a change within the organization. And we want this change to happen. Why? Because the objective, why are we doing this? We want to bring about an improvement. Yeah, we want to achieve a certain goal. If the change does not happen, then we may fail to achieve our objectives. So it is important that we integrate the ICT policy implementation and policy planning with change management. Any organization brings about change. The changes come through business processes, bringing about new business processes or revised business processes. We may have a change in organizational structure, management roles, employee assignments, stakeholder relationships, and so on and so forth. So one of the big issues is that change can generally create fear, and fear leads to resistance. Yeah, change is we're bringing something that is unknown, and once we have bringing something that is unknown, we are scared about the future. So we want to mitigate those fears. We want to bring down those fears. So one of the ways we do that is proper education and training. You see, we focused on the training policy. Yeah? It's part and parcel. So that training, communication, educating somebody, educating individuals, it really helps a lot. Yeah. Then also we want to involve our users, our end users, in the change process. Yeah. So this requires organizational change management plan. So what is an organizational change management plan? Here the focus is the people, the end users. That is the focus that we have. So change management involves creating ways, creating innovative ways so that you can measure. For example, a change is going to happen. You can make a measurement to say that we are moving from point A to point B. Who has managed to move? How can we motivate? How can we reward the one who performs better so that they encourage others? Yeah. You also design programs to recruit and train employees in a core competence, something that you know will help the organization, a particular competence that will help the organization move forward. So change management involves analysis and definition of the things that needs to be changed, all the changes that the organization is facing. So we need to have a clear understanding of what needs to be changed and how is it going to change. So the change management is proactively planning for any and addressing anything that may come from the side of the people. You're being proactive. You're being able, you know that this is what I'm going to communicate. This is what may be asked. And then what is the underlying fear? And then how do we respond to that fear? Yeah, you're planning ahead. Now, this change management is integrated with project management. Because change management always comes with a new project coming on board. So strategy and policy are basically a new project. Why? You're changing processes. You're changing business processes. Now, here is a pictorial presentation of organizational change management. You have the current state, which we have already looked at in strategy and policy formulation. You have the future state, which you want to head to. And here you have change management, where you have your strategy and policy implementation. Yeah, because these two are going to help us drive to the future. Why? We want a sustained outcome. That is the primary objective. We want a sustained outcome. The reason for the change management is to reduce risks that come from resistance to change, or failure for us to achieve our objective, or failure to move from our current state to the future state that we want. So why do we do change management in ICT projects? We want, remember, the people, the employees are objectives, and we want each and every employee, the stakeholders, to understand why we are making a change. Why are we making a change? Some people are comfortable with the way things are. Others have different objectives from management. Maybe I'm part of the company simply to pick up a salary, but management wants something more from me. And this may lead me to understand and change the way I'm doing things. So we want to know why we want to change. We want to know what to change. And then what skills and knowledge is necessary to make that change. Okay? Could be my attitude. Other cases, it's actual skills. further training, and so on and so forth. So why change? Why the objective? First of all, we talked about the issue of sustained growth. The issue of sustained growth. Avoid rework and stay within budget. Sorry, this was, let's remove this. What happens when we fail to integrate change management into our projects? Here is a pictorial view of how things can be misunderstood if you don't have appropriate change management integrated with your project. Here we have a pictorial view of how, of the different ideas, an idea being communicated to by a customer to maybe to a salesperson. A customer may have explained, may have asked for a swing, and the salesperson thought they wanted a swing with 3 levels. Yeah. Yet this in reality is what the customer wanted. Now this communication is then maybe given to another party, a second party, the lead of the project. And this is what the lead project person perceives. In design, this is what they perceive. The programmer gets this, yet this is really what the customer wanted. So you want a simple objective to be attained, and you want every member of the team to be part and parcel of it. So change management brings all the stakeholders together, and the communication is made. And by the time everybody leaves the room, or after a certain period, this is the objective that should have been attained. Yeah, it should have been clearly understood. You want that everyone adopts this change. And then change management, first of all, is not a last minute thing. It must be carefully planned. So as you're going through your policy formulation and policy and planning for, strategy and policy planning formulation, it should come together with the change management. Sorry, again, we have gotten those. Stages of change. There are several stages of change. That you'd expect from stakeholders. One, first and most important, is people always have sentimental attachments to the way things have been done. People always have a sentimental attachment to the way things have been done. You may be excited about the change, but we are normally quite comfortable with the way things are. So there's always a sense of loss. Okay? Then once you introduce something new, the new thing that you're introducing is foreign. It may be you may have a clear picture, you who is introducing the change, you who is the lead, but to the one who is receiving it for the first time, there is always confusion. So expect a sense of confusion. Finally, in that, there's always skepticism. Yeah? There's always skepticism. As long as I'm still confused, and as long as I'm still attached, I will always have the selfish part in me, which does not want to let go of what I am comfortable with. Now, you have two kinds of possible responses. You have the positive and the negative. A person who is positive, the individuals who are positive, will normally start with, they will be optimistic about what you're introducing. Then as you begin to introduce, because there's that state of confusion and still that skepticism, there is doubt, the pessimism comes in. But once understanding happens, a sense of hopeful realism sets in once people begin to understand. And the more they understand, they become confident, informed optimism. So this leads to later on completion or satisfaction when the idea or the new process has been adopted. Then they have the very erratic negative group who are comfortable with stability, with the way things have been done. Then the minute you bring in change, you have immobilization. Sometimes this may not come from the user, it may come from management itself, which decides to do a disruption, a complete disruption. Yeah? So now when you have that complete disruption, you have denial. When individuals are completely refusing the new way of doing things. And this comes with anger. Yeah? This comes with anger, and this is when you have stiff resistance. Now, this is where change management brings in bargaining. When you begin to bargain, to allow, so that you begin to bargain to say, okay, which could come in with incentives, trainings at a very nice location where people will eat nice food, and so on and so forth, and rewards are given. This normally comes with depression, but as the individuals continue using the new way of doing things, as they begin to test it out and see it works, then acceptance comes in. As long as perseverance is maintained, perseverance in what we're doing, eventually you come to acceptance. So just here is a summary of the individual, what an individual would go through until they come to that point of acceptance and commitment. So the two things where you have denial and resistance fall in as long as you have denial and resistance, this is where productivity would remain low. But once a person begins to explore and see things begin to work, that's the whole point. If things begin to work, then they will gradually move to commitment. Here we have a change management framework. Yeah. And here we move through the different stages you'd go through to bring about a change. The planning process begins with us communicating what is going to change and why we are changing. Now, this planning process leads us to beginning to communicate with our stakeholders. We begin to understand who is going to be affected. Those of us who are leading the change, who is going to be affected by this change? We begin to understand how will they be impacted by the change. Now, in this stage, you have a leadership engagement, those who are going to be affected. Then also the workforce impact. Then we begin the communication to those who are being impacted. This comes to plays together with training. And hopefully this then leads to sustained change. Here we have an organizational change management methodology developed by Prosky, which has 3 stages. So all of these are not different from the framework we've been dealing with. You have the preparation stage, which is the planning stage. Here you define your change management strategy, prepare your team, those who are going to lead change, then develop sponsorship, your sponsorship model. So the sponsorship model may include, let's say, something like you have certain individuals who are going to sponsor, who are going to take leadership, and they are going to help their colleagues get through the change itself. So take an example. if you have members in the sales department, if you want to make changes in the sales department, you will have certain people who are going to sponsor, those who are going to take leadership, and they are the ones you start with, and they're going to help their fellow sales team change. Same thing you do in accounts, maybe in process, in operations, and so on and so forth. Yeah. Then you have phase 2, where you develop the change management plans. What is going to be changed, and then take action and implement. The third phase is where, after the changes, you collect and analyze feedback. Where are the gaps? How do people feel about this? Where is the resistance? Where is the doubt? And then begin to respond to that feedback, especially where the gaps are, where there is doubt and where there is resistance. Then at this point, take the corrective actions needed, addressing any doubts. If there is something genuinely that needs to be corrected, it's corrected, and then celebrate the successes that have been achieved. So here I've just made a summary, but this is the detail. So phase 1 is basically the planning process, as we said. But here are the key points you need to bring out. Change characteristic profile. This one will tell you what needs to change at hand, at what size, and the scope and impact, who is going to be impacted. Then look at organizational attributes profile. So here you're looking at the organization in general and the groups that exist, who is going to be impacted, and any specific attributes that may contribute to the challenges when changing. The change management team structure. What resources are you going to need? How many people will you need? What resources will be needed for the efforts? And then who are those who are in position, those relationships within the project? Where are the positioned relationship in the project? Those who are going to make the sponsorship, those who are going to drive change in the different units where change is needed. Now, let me first go back specifically, talk about sponsorship. It's very important when you have peer-to-peer change-led management. What do I mean? I think I gave you an example that when I was head ICT operations at UMO, and as ICT, we try to bring about the change in teaching and learning by introducing e-learning, and we had negative impact. But when we had a situation where fellow lecturers were now a lecturer is speaking to a lecturer about the positive impact of using e-resources, e-learning resources in the teaching and learning process, there you had an automatic positive response because a fellow lecturer was now speaking to another lecturer. So that's the purpose of the sponsorship model. So these sponsorship are the ones who provide leadership across the organization, so that that's going to be the sponsors to change. Impact assessment. So here you identify the groups or the people who are going to be involved and what change is going to happen to them. So this helps a lot in identifying possible areas of resistance, who you need to communicate to, and the doubts that you need to address. The change management strategy. So here this stage is an assessment stage. And the objective is to align the change management efforts to the type of change, the size of change, and how well it is articulated. Phase 2 is concerned with creating the change management plans. So here you're looking at the communication plan. What message are we going to communicate, and how can we communicate it in an articulate manner. Here we are looking at what message are we sending across. The sponsorship roadmap here is extremely important because these are going to be the mouthpiece, those going to do the communication. The training plan, who is going to be trained in what skills and so on and so forth. The coaching plan. So here, you're engaging and equipping managers and the people who are in leadership on how they are going to impact their team. Then you have the resistance management plan. So these ones are going to proactively and reactively address any resistance. The phase 3, the final phase, is where we are gaining feedback and addressing, correcting any gaps and any queries or doubts that may arise. Yeah. So this is basically feedback and making any corrections that need to be made. So the final phase also includes reinforcement mechanism, ensuring that compliance and change is continuous. Recognizing those who have embraced change and celebrating successes. Do we have any question?
I don't think so.
Okay. So can we at this point have our presentation? More or less, these are our sessions done. So these are the primary sessions that we focus on. So as of next, by end of next, by mid this week, I should be able to put up your final assessment. So today, I don't know if all the groups are present. You can present your work, your group work. Is it possible?
Kato, let Kato project and then we begin. Doctor, let's organize our group and then we begin.
Okay, thank you.
Kato, but Kato is traveling. Sarah.
Mike is projecting.
Okay. Then Kato will be the one to begin. Me, I'm the moderator already. I've appointed, self-appointed as a moderator.
Thank you, thank you. How many groups do we have?
Only 2, doctor.
Okay, okay.
But this group is on with 4 members.
Okay.
Ours has 4 members. We have Muhechi Mukama, Sarah Ahura, Ronald Kato, and Mlera Winfred, myself, Madam.
Okay, okay.
Kato, I hope you are in a stable place. You can begin, please. Oh, Muhechi. Muhechi.
Yes, please.
You start, please. Kato seems to be traveling.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Mohechi, as you have been introduced. So, in regards to our case study of metal manufacturing company, it's a leading consumer. It's a leading consumer durable manufacturer in the United States. Under the immense pressure of the industry, consolidation, and dynamic market environment, In order to overcome the challenges it's facing, as per the study we are going to highlight, Benton Company has taken an idea of adopting an enterprise resource planning and ERP system in order to implement strategic goals to achieve its objectives, which include product development in focus of the customers, acquisition of the new business, global expansion, and continuous improvement. However, with analyzing the company setting, there were several threats that have been identified, such as slow growth in the industry and a decrease in the profit margin, which we shall highlight on how best to give on what implementations are best in order so as to achieve the strategic goals. Hence, Bertrand has answered this by increasing productivity and decreasing the inventory of the implementation of continuous improvement, but there are strategic changes that will be needed to be deployed so as to achieve the goals, and hence the ICT strategy recommended as we made our search on the study is as follows. The ERP system implementation, just to give a highlight, it's a system that has links to different business processes. Like the same way we are Uganda Matters University have engaged in academia, into sports, into different fundraisers, and it offers timely information on analyzing the general capability and capacity of organizational operations. The current systems in the Benton company are antiquated and integrated. So an ERP system therefore becomes crucial in order to help the company contend with other companies that are bound in adopting the similar technologies in the market. However, with the implementation of the ERP, it is trivial and associated with considerable costs in deployment, which brings us to the procedural strictness that forces the departments within the company to adjust to particular changes and actions in order to fit within the paradigms or the settings of the system and end up being more rigid rather than the Benton's continuous improvement. Just to give a highlight, scholars have noted that the ERP systems mean that to conduct business, various departments of the company need to follow a specific order of doing it, putting their own organizational culture to one side so that they can avoid contradictions, and nevertheless the improvement of productivity and competitiveness, which is a consequence of ERP implementation and is considered to be a strategic imperative. Someone to pick up from there? Hello, Winfred.
On the part of the integration with the suppliers and the customers, for us to be able to improve the supply and chain integration, the Benton manufacturing company needs to adopt technologies like electronic data interchange, EDI, and supply management software, commonly known as supply chain integration. These tools promote efficient use of communication and data transfer, such as inventory, and more efficiently. In actual sense, these tools, they help, especially in tracking data in that company of Benton. Next. Umech, can you go to next slide? Next is the digital transformation of the new product development. Benton's manufacturing company can leverage existing web presence and use social media analytics to understand and meet the customer needs, to adopt the software development and best practice to respond to the market demands more efficiently and more frequently. In this case, you can see, like, for example, like Facebook. If some people want to know how the product is moving, how and if it is good. Sometimes they post like some questions to know how their product is moving and in the market, and if it is good, so they can easily to change. So those are some of the social media analytics they can do. So in this approach conforms to with Benton's strategy of the new product development and is suggestible by the data integration of an ERP system. Next. Might you move to the next slide, please? There's international
Mohechi,
expansion through ICT. For the international growth, the Benton can explore the cloud implementation as a strategy that will create a flexible and efficient international framework for business. The advantage of using the cloud computing allow Benton to achieve the rapid expanding the new markets due to available scalability and cost effective solutions. As you can see, most of the companies nowadays they prefer to store most of the information on the cloud, especially people that have like data centers. It is also one of the strategies. Next, there's continuous improvement through ICT. Benton's continuous improvement can be fostered through the support from ICT, through data analytics and business intelligence. And these tools assist in pointing out the opportunities for enhancement and recognize the changes that affect the real time. In implementing an ERP system, it's continuous improvement. Benton faces a challenge of systems processes that might not reflect with culture of a firm's management. Winfred, you can take over from there.
okay, thank you. Next, I hope you've got the next slide, Mohechi. It is cost-based analysis on return on investment. Now, much as ERP is more demanding when it comes to implementations, but then the benefits are enormous. So using this system, Benton will gain more over time because the return on investment is realistic. Then change management and trainings, just like Doctor was pointing out, change management is needed here and must be handled critically so that the employees can easily adopt. And then the training has to be done because these are new things, new systems. And in doing that, once the employees adopt to it, it's a good deal. And then I'll talk about the conclusion. We finally said that in conclusion, the ICT strategy of Benton Manufacturing should be aimed at using technology for supporting the company's goals and missions. A set of components that make up this strategy includes organizational transformation through ERP implementation, improvement of supply chain, integration, support for the development and implementation of digital products, global growth through cloud services, use of data analytics to drive improvement and effective change management. The above evolution shows that if ICT initiatives are in harmony with the business objectives, Benton can improve its competitiveness and make sustainable development in a highly competitive industry. And then we came up with some references, Doctor, down there, where we got this information. Thank you, class.
Thank you so much, Mulera and team. I really love the way you focused on each organization objective and how you formulated a strategy to support. Thank you for that. Can we have the second group?
Sharing, please. Winnie, who's sharing? Could they stop sharing so that I can also be able to share?
It's Mohechi. Okay.
Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so here, my group, we have Gertrude, myself, and Sida. Sida was not able to join today. So we have the proposed ICT strategy for Benton in alignment with the business goals. We give a background and then we look at the strategic growth pillars that were looked at by Benton. They talked about focusing on customer-driven new product development, acquisition of new businesses that complement existing ones. Their goal is also to ensure that there is international expansion and then emphasis on continuous improvement approach. So we are suggesting ICT intervention, the ICT intervention to actually achieve these objectives. And we are talking about running customer feedback collection campaigns by using Google Forms, web analytics, e-commerce platforms, social media listening, AI, and sentiment analysis to ensure that Benton gets a deeper understanding of who their customers are, what they're interested in, how they prefer to access the Benton products, and how the brand is perceived by the customers. This will help the company to ensure they produce products that resonate with their customers and align how the products can reach the end customer conveniently. Additionally, this will give Benton insight into how to handle the distributorship problem that they are facing currently with the suppliers and guide the decision-making process on how to address the diminishing distributor numbers. Then in order to achieve the acquisition of new businesses that complement the existing business, as the ICT team, we advise and recommend for Benton to conduct market intelligence drills using platforms like CB Insights and Crunchbase Online. This will help them gain visibility into knowing the companies in sectors that are complementary to their business, that is manufacturing. It is through this insight that Benton will be able to pick up on businesses and organizations that it can partner with to improve its market coverage and improve its supply management production stores and tap into cross-selling opportunities through multiple distributors. And we envision for this to be able to improve by about 40% if this strategy is taken on. Benton should also use data from the current systems to critically analyze the previous trends and identify the strengths of the business, the threats, the weaknesses, opportunities with its existing distributors. This will help Benton to analyze and identify solutions on how it can better retain business relations with its distributors to reduce the rate at which it is losing them to the competition by about 18%. I'll ask Gertrude to take on from strategy 3 to the end. Gertrude.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Teresa. Thank you, team. Good afternoon once again. As ICT team, we also recommended a strategy 3, and that is international expansion. And we are recommending to Benton Manufacturing Company to use the already existing platforms, online selling platforms, for them to reach out to the international customers. This really helps you to reach out to those people without even being there physically. And we said this will boost the Benton market presence, digital footprint, and brand awareness. And we are looking at the increment of 40%. Then Benton should partner with and adopt global payment solution processors like PayPal, Stripe, or Wise to allow it to engage in online payments globally. This will likely boost sales by 33%. So this strategy number 3 is basically looking at the international expansion and how Benton can enlarge its market worldwide. So we went on and came up with a strategy number 4, and this is the emphasis on the continuous improvement approach. Thank you. And here we said Benton should implement smart manufacturing systems embedded with IoT, the Internet of Things, sensors to monitor real-time performance, predict maintenance needs, and forecast machinery servicing that in order to reduce unexpected downtime by 95%. This monitoring will achieve the added advantage to Benton of informing and identifying faulty parts in the production line early enough to avoid downtime. And remember, this is also among the 4 goals of the Benton Manufacturing Company. Teresa, can you move a little bit down? Teresa, kindly scroll down.
Okay. Let me know where I should
So we are
scroll
coming
up
up with our to the last page.
Okay.
Yes, in our conclusion, we said with proper implementation of this strategy, we believe that Benton will be able to maintain its position and the market leader as a market leader in the manufacturing industry, despite the current challenges that it is facing. So if I may conclude, we basically looked at the strategies that Benton is looking at, and that is where we based ourselves to come up with this ICT strategy that we have just presented to class. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, the team, for listening.
Thank you so much. I really, really like your strategy. It is really well thought out, and you looked at the organization's actual objectives and said, so actually when you look at it, if Benton was to look at your strategy and what was being proposed, they may snatch yours and discard the ERP proposal. I think this has been well done. Thank you.
You're welcome, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone. I don't know, this marks the kind of the end of the teaching part. I don't know what you thought about the course unit so far, what we've done, what you may not be happy with.
Doctor, I have a question, an inquiry.
Yes, please.
Yes. When I went through the material you've been posting on our e-learning platform,
yes,
I found out that our exam will be a take home.
Yes.
And in one of when you were introducing this course to us, as if I saw that we shall go at Rubaga and write a paper. So I am still confused on how the paper is
Writing
going
a paper? No.
Yeah. It is
Oh,
there. It is
it's
in
a
one of
written,
the
yeah, it's a
materials you
take home.
shared. I read it somewhere.
Yes, it's a take home, a written paper, but take home, not written exam.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yes,
Okay, thank
Teresa.
you, doctor.
You're welcome. Teresa, yes, please.
Ask about our experience with the course, this particular module. And my submission is, I wish we had more time because I think for us in ICT management and policy planning, this is the heartbeat of actually what we
Yes,
signed
that
up
is
for. And there is a lot of content. I can't believe it's the last class, but looking at some of the notes that you shared, I had looked at
Sorry, Teresa, you've fallen off. Hello, Teresa. Is it me or is it Teresa's network?
So I think she has an incoming GSM call that is breaking her network.
Okay, okay. Hello, Teresa.
there was also
I think she's been cut the network. Maybe we'll go to Sarah.
Mine is really an appreciation to you, Dr. Shiba, for this insightful course. It is really helpful, especially on my end, considering that policy and strategy establishment is what I do, is a breadwinner on my side. So this was really insightful, and I think I'll have to keep referring to the notes as and when they come through. And luckily enough, last night I was seeing on X, and there's so much fire blowing up about policies, how people are talking about we are jumping to AI laws, yet people have policies that are very, very backdated as far as 2014, when social media was still nascent, when all these things were still almost unknown. And it's only like 3 or 4 government entities that have updated their policies in the recent times meaning from 2019 to date, which is also quite a bit of time, since you mentioned that policies should they are living documents, but at least they should be changed within a period of 3 to 5 years. I
Yes,
think this also gets us a lot of wins and a lot of opportunities in the outside market, which we are all working towards. So
yeah.
this is really an important part of class. I really enjoyed these sessions. I've really had a lot to take home for myself and also for my career growth. I appreciate so much your work. My God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Really appreciate that. Teresa, sorry, your network disrupted the communication.
I don't know why I ended. Thank you so much, Sarah. I think I agree, and I mean I'm in total agreement with thank Doctor for the content delivery and everything. So I was raising a bit of a challenge on understanding how exactly to set up the balanced scorecard. It was in the same notes with the benchmarking
Okay.
section. Yeah, and I think we never got your guidance on it, or maybe I could have missed something.
The guidance on,
The balanced scorecard in particular,
okay.
in line with setting up, was it I forget what the main objective that it contributes to the organization, but I think it's about gauging the current status of the organization and where they plan to go to achieve the goal. Maybe you could throw a bit of light on that as we conclude.
Can I prepare something and then send to the class on that one in particular?
Okay, no problem. That's okay.
Because it's one of the foundations of policy of strategy and policy planning. Let me prepare something and then send to the class, specifically on the balanced scorecard.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other question or comment?
Maybe, Doctor, also me, I come in to appreciate you for all the efforts you have done towards our learning. Thank you so much. I myself I have also learned a lot from this course.
Okay.
Much as I'm in currently in HR department, we also session, and this course has really showed more light on what I basically do on a daily basis. So it was very great. It was very good on my side. The benchmarking thing, we also do that. The policies, it was really good on my side, and I have gained a lot. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. Thank you for that appreciation.
Welcome, Doctor.
Maybe Doctor also from the class coordinator.
Yes, please.
On behalf of all of us, I want to really applaud you for not being a rigid doctor. At least every time I'll call you and tell you there is this issue, you're like, okay, what do we do? Anyway, you adjust accordingly and you don't give a lot of hard time. Doctor, thank you for being that human doctor, because I thought most of the doctors I know, but you're a doctor, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you too so much. Thank you.
Also, maybe, Doctor, this one is out of class.
Yes, please.
We missed you at the party and you were awarded, we have your award of 20, Doctors served Uganda Matters University for 20 years plus. Hey, you didn't come.
I'm really sorry. I'm really, really sorry. Coming to me is a challenge, but I'm hoping I can make efforts in the next, in this month and the next month, and probably March, at least to come once a month.
Yeah,
and
we really missed you and the appreciation of working 20 years plus. That is a big one.
Thank you so much. Oh, that was so good.
Yes.
Thank
yes,
you so
Doctor.
much. Thank you everyone so much for the appreciation, and especially for this course unit. Like Teresa said, this course unit is it's one of the, should I say, one of the things that is the meat of this course, of this program, and it's introducing, it's really changing the mindset of what ICT should be in an organization. And now you guys are the change makers who are going to be driving this. It is something that maybe some organizations' management may not realize it, but it truly is a change maker. So I really wish you all the best, and we shall meet in other course units, I'm sure. Thank you so much, everyone, for the appreciation.
You're welcome, Doctor.
Okay, I wish you all